None of Bitcoin's core value props have changed. Yeah, you've got one kind of crazy billionaire, Elon Musk, tweeting wild things about Bitcoin. Do we want to place a whole bunch of trust and belief in him? No. And that's the whole point of Bitcoin is we don't have to trust in Elon. We just trust in the protocol and we trust in the mathematics and physics of how it all works. So yeah, Elon's might impact the price like a little bit here, but long-term Elon has little to no influence over the protocol. He can't add more Bitcoin. He can't take away Bitcoin. He can't censor Bitcoin. That's the whole point.
What do you feel is important to remind people of right now when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto in general, with what's going on, with the recent big dip, with people being fearful, with Bitcoin crash trending, and a lot of the, and I hear it gets out to people that aren't really in it for the right reasons, which is great. And then the people that are real Bitcoiners are certain in it and they're excited. But what's important to remind people right now about what's going on?
Yeah, the reason why you're feeling fear right now is because the price is dropping. Same with like how you feel greed when the price goes up. So, or FOMO, what might be a better way to describe that. Good traders or good investors fight that feeling, that gut feeling that you have. The exact opposite of it is typically what you should be doing. Now, this is of course nuanced, and there's a lot of reasons why you should or shouldn't hold an investment, but this is something to recognize at its core. The reason why everyone's panic selling is because people are panicking, right? But then typically things reverse. These are some of the best times to enter a position. So first, recognize that feeling internally and understand that this is a feeling that good investors will learn how to fight. It's still something I feel, by the way. It's not like I'm immune from feeling that. I'm immune from responding to that feeling. And I think that's an important distinction. So that's the first thing to recognize, is that you're a human and that you're making very emotional decisions. We are barely out of the jungle. Like we have barely, entered this much more civilized world that we're in. So we still have very, very animalistic sort of feelings when it comes to emotions. So one, fight that. Two, none of Bitcoin's core value props have changed. Yeah, you've got one kind of crazy billionaire, Elon Musk, tweeting wild things about Bitcoin. Do we want to place a whole bunch of trust and belief in him? No. And that's the whole point of Bitcoin is we don't have to trust in Elon. We just trust in the protocol and we trust in the mathematics and physics of how it all works. So yeah, Elon's might impact the price like a little bit here, but long-term Elon has little to no influence over the protocol. He can't add more Bitcoin. He can't take away Bitcoin. He can't censor Bitcoin. That's the whole point.
So is there any, for you, educated forms of fear around Bitcoin that you feel maybe there's worst case scenarios? Is there anything you're like, well, I don't want this to happen? Or are you so convinced and so certain? Because a lot of people say the number one thing that we get with fearful people is government. The government, can they ban it? The government, what happens if they ban it? They want to start their own currency. Are they going to throw away Bitcoin and start their own? All these things happen. I think we should give some of our listeners clarity on your thoughts on that. When someone says, oh, there's an article that comes out, the government's going to create their own cryptocurrency and get rid of everything else. Is that possible? Can they ban it?
Yeah, there are certainly threats to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not 100% invincible. It is extremely strong, one of the strongest things on this planet. But there are certain weaknesses that it has. Some things would be like a combination of government plus like hyper socialist policies, like very like USSR, Russia style policies of like execution if you owned Bitcoin. That would certainly put a damper on things. Which, the US banned gold back in the 30s. So it's not unprecedented. However, the penalties weren't that great and people didn't adhere to it, and the rest of the world didn't ban it. So government banning, I think, of course, is the big one in the room. How does Bitcoin survive a government banning? Well, if we look at climate change, all governments across the world can't work together to solve that. So why would they work together to solve Bitcoin if Bitcoin is a threat to all of them? Two, there's a high value to be a confederate in a global anti-Bitcoin. So let's say all the governments in the world are trying to ban Bitcoin. Russia and China don't like the US and have a financial incentive to actually, and they'll go, actually, we bought Bitcoin and we're going to back our currencies by Bitcoin. So there's a game theoretic function here that just doesn't play out and it becomes pretty unrealistic. Also, when we look at prohibition, banning gold, banning alcohol, banning drugs, it doesn't work. If people want it, they're going to get it.
They almost make it more valuable when they come back.
Certainly. Yeah. I mean, that's where, yeah, that's where, if the government points to something and says, I'm afraid of this, people go, well, now I'm interested. And especially when it comes to money, though, if they start to flinch when it comes to Bitcoin and really consider it a threat, then people start to question, why are they worried about this? It actually goes down a rabbit hole that I don't think they ever want to go down, because most people don't question the nature of their euro or dollar. But if they started to, they'd be like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe this is the financial system. And then finally, the government is a collection of people. If a huge portion of the US population owns Bitcoin, like 30 to 50% of the population owns Bitcoin in some form or of some value, if you ban Bitcoin, you've just immediately voted yourself out of office. And your constituents, the individuals in America, don't want you to make that decision. So I would consider that a very unethical and, I would say, illegal decision to ban something that a majority of the population really likes. And again, ultimately, the government is a service to the citizens. And then the citizens at some point will say, no, I'm not going to adhere to that, or why they break it, or eventually vote someone out of office and then bring someone else in.
So in terms of your current temperature of government banning, I mean, anything is possible, of course, in the world. 99.9% of things don't happen the way the worst case scenarios, but the current temperature for you, it's not a fear. It's not in your radar, really.
I don't think so. I mean, this is ultimately a fight for freedom. And so if the world becomes hyper socialist, where no one cares about being free and no one cares about making money, sure, maybe they got a shot at killing Bitcoin. But at that point, I think we've got pretty serious problems with the whole world. Certainly a possibility that the world becomes extremely socialist. We're starting to see things trend socialist. And I'm hoping that Bitcoin is the one thing that can fight back against that. But definitely not a great sign. So if the world became extremely socialist and having any sort of wealth was widely frowned upon globally, which I find very implausible, but if that became the case, then that would be very negative.
For you, what's your take on community-based investing? What's your take on Dogecoin? Yeah. What's your take on GameStop? What's your take on AMC? What's your take on this kind of community-based type investing where people come together to do certain things and move the market?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I think ultimately anything is a shared belief system of what the future potential value of it might be. The dollar, as the St. Louis Federal Reserve states, the dollar, just like Bitcoin, has no intrinsic value. The dollar is not backed by gold. The dollar is backed by our aggregate belief that the dollar is worth something. Same with the euro, same with the yen, same with the pound, and same with any other investment. We all buy shares of Apple because we believe that Apple's future growth potential will exist. Bitcoin is the same function. So ultimately, all investments are community-based investments based on just requires an aggregate shared belief in that for it to add value. More simply put, for every buyer, there has to be a seller, and for every seller, there has to be a buyer. So ultimately, it's a collection of buyers and sellers who have various levels of belief in the asset. Now, I think what you're talking about too is more of like the social function of like things are getting like everyone piled in on AMC to squeeze the shorts. I definitely think that like there's a couple different components here. One is that this is reflective of like a very, very frothy market. The Federal Reserve, by printing with alongside every other central bank in the world, printing $25 trillion, certainly wasn't that was gonna have some things that occur because of that. And this is an example of that. People piling in on terrible trade, like AMC and GameStop are failing companies. That's why they were so heavily shorted. I do love the enthusiasm and then the vibe of like, let's go crush the shorts of these like douchey hedge funds, right? Like that's awesome. And some of these folks like Stevie Cohen with SAC Capital, former SAC Capital and Point72 leader. I mean, he insider traded and won. He paid $1 billion fine, the largest fine ever by the SEC, and got away with it. And now he runs Point72. So like, I very much am with the crowd on this one of like, yeah, let's squeeze these shorts, even if it's a stupid ass stock. Like, let's go squeeze it. On the flip side, a lot of people are going to get burned on doing that, right? Like if you're the bag holder and eventually the prices stabilize back down to maybe a more appropriate value, then there's a lot of bag holders. But I do think it's kind of invigorating to be part of this movement, right? I think Bitcoin reflects that too. Bitcoin's part of a revolution. Bitcoin isn't this nerdy, geeky thing. Bitcoin isn't this financial thing. It's about a vote of this new financial system, and that vote is a fuck you to the existing system. It's like, no, I believe in freedom and I believe in my own rights, and I don't recognize the validity of some of these old structures. I want a new structure that I don't have to get your permission to enter into. I'm a human and I deserve these fundamental human rights. So Bitcoin, very much like some of the principles of the United States, of the founding principles of the United States, were based on freedom and liberty. And so I think that fundamentally is the whole point of Bitcoin, and why I own it and why I invest in it. And so I think so Bitcoin inherently has this social function of folks who are ready for that, who are ready for a revolution, who are ready to stand up and say, I'm tired of this. With these other things like AMC and GameStop, I think those represent that too, but I'm not sure what the long-term value of that is, right? Like of GameStop, like you could maybe trade it and make a lot of money in the short term, but you don't want to hold GameStop for the next 10 years.
I think people are beginning to realize, Dan, that literally our governments, the banking systems, they're using our money to make themselves more money. The last thing on their mind is what's in it for the people, right? And Bitcoin, the first thing is what's in it for the people. So what's your take on that? How would you end and kind of give people some guidance on what they can do to continue to really make this mass adoption?
I wasn't a public speaker or a writer until 2 years ago in the space. I'm an old OG, but I wasn't like someone public facing. I felt a responsibility to teach people about Bitcoin, to make that ladder shorter. My ladder took me, 6 years to climb, and I wanted to make that ladder 6 months. So that's where I took kind of a purpose of my own to go build out content and describe and talk about different Bitcoin topics in simplistic ways to help everyone else come to the same conclusion that I did. I think with anything you look at in life, whether it be like you've got a car wash, you've got anything that you do, a car wash, you like to golf, educating other folks about it and getting them interested in it, I think is fun. I think ultimately, like, if you find value and you find pleasure in doing something, helping others find that too is cool. Don't be too pushy about it, but give them the solid pitch for it. Maybe no one's ever pitched them how to go play golf before, and it's a ton of fun, right? Or maybe no one's ever thought about building a car wash, because maybe you found, oh man, I've got like a chain of 3 car washes and they do super well. It's people find different topics fascinating. So find a topic that fascinates you and educate others. I think the future of like the creator economy and folks creating content about things that they're interested in, there's going to be a gold rush. I mean, I do it in Bitcoin, but you could do it about any topic out there: knitting, crocheting, automobile manufacturing, or repair. You could even have content based on how to create content. So if you've got a passion, lean into it. I think leaning into that passion, figuring out, what really drives you, and then talking to other people about it. It's been really fun for me with Bitcoin. And then, kind of end things on Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin isn't a once in a lifetime sort of opportunity. It's a once in a human existence opportunity. We don't see gold getting flipped every 10 years with like a new metal. Gold has been the store value asset for, was it like 2,000 to 4,000 years? And then Bitcoin's era might be that long or longer, so, you think about it in this sort of this epic time range, this is a pretty incredible opportunity to where this isn't going to be like a real estate investment or a stock or something like that. This is something far, far different. So I would leave you with that. Like, consider Bitcoin to be a once in a human lifetime opportunity. And today it's got a discount, which means that you can enter in the position a little bit cheaper.
Hey, what's up? And thank you for watching this video. If you enjoy this video and this content, make sure you hit the subscribe button below, put the notifications on, and I assure you, you'll love this content and these videos.